And is it recording? Is it recording? I think so. It's saying that it's recording. And we are recording. All right. I know, right? We already passed one hurdle for the morning. Anyways, morning, John. How are you doing this morning? How's
Good
how's
morning.
everything? Yeah,
It's going great. Yeah, I'm having a good day. Already starting the week off right. I'm getting my meal prep and laundry going. I'm productive.
Productive.
Yeah.
Is out of curiosity, is the have you guys gotten a hurricane warning up there too in Bakersfield?
Yeah, we got flash flood warning.
Uh-huh.
But it hasn't even started raining. It's just really cloudy. So,
All
I mean,
right.
I'll watch out for it, but I don't plan on going anywhere today anyway, so I'm good.
Right. I find it interesting that California has a hurricane warning, and then B, it's funny on how when you have exceptional events that happen in California, California just it's climate change, global warming, California this, ah! and to be honest with you, it's very congruent to the things that you post on your Instagram about what Californians be like. And I got to tell you, it's the most entertaining thing to watch your content about how Californians are. And I don't know, man, what got you started into making light of us Californians and our radical bullshit?
So here's the thing. I'm originally from the South. So
Mhm.
I grew up in Louisiana. I just got to Bakersfield, California a year and a half ago. Before that, I was in Houston, Texas. So
Mm.
talking about like floods and hurricanes, this is nothing compared to what I've been through. I actually was in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. I mean, I
Oh,
left
wow.
like 2 days before. I believe Hurricane Harvey was the one, like the once in 500-year flooding thing that happened in Houston. I actually went
Mm.
to Florida during that because I saw that coming. I was like, I'm out of here. So,
Mm.
but growing up in the South, it's politically different than California. And so when I get here and then I see a lot of things to me, just as my opinion, to me, don't make logical sense.
Right.
I feel like sometimes when you can't cry, you have to laugh at it. So I do
Mm.
poke a little fun at it. And I think there's people that kind of see the humor when it's presented that way. I guess in the way that I'm doing it, as opposed to like watching the news or discussing it with people who think the same as you, and then you're automatically saying, "Oh yeah, this is the way that we should be doing things." But then when I kind of like put light to it, they're like, "Yeah, it is kind of silly, right?"
Yeah. It's just interesting on how much California has changed pretty recently. I was having a conversation with one of my buddies about this. It's like I remember when social media came out when I was in high school, and to
Mm-hmm.
see how people handled differences of opinions, difference of backgrounds, difference of cultures, just differences of perspective to how we handle
Mm-hmm.
it now is just so black and white. And it's but I in lieu of everybody gaslighting and triggering, I'm very glad that you make light of all these situations, because that's just kind of sometimes what we need. It's like, yo,
Yeah.
get yourself out of your feels, pull
Right.
yourself out of this situation, and
Yep.
now let's take another look at it. Instead of looking at it though emotionally, let's just look at it objectively and
Right.
logically. And
Yeah.
like you said, make some light out of it, because we should be able to make some light out of it.
Yeah.
Um, and what I noticed too, and what I love about your profile and your social media presence is that not only do you make light of everything and josh around, but you're also like really in shape. You're like actually like a guy that does bodybuilding and physique. I'm curious, do you usually get that kind of feedback like, hey, you're funny, wait a minute, you're also a bodybuilder? Like what's that been like for you to kind of, I don't want to say carry both personas, but have different layers about you, your personality, and your presence.
That's funny you mentioned that. One, my I don't really follow like the whole astrology thing, but I do know that I'm a Gemini, and I think they're known for two faces. So that probably fits pretty well with my personality, and that I can, yeah, like do wear a lot of different hats. It is funny because I will have people that follow me for fitness related stuff, and then they see the funny things. They're like, "Oh, he's funny too." And then there are people who will follow me just for the little funny reels, and then they see some of the posts of shows and stuff. They're like, "Oh man, he's jacked! Like, what's going on there?" So yeah, it is. It's funny because each one will kind of send me messages and say, "Oh, you're really funny," or "Man, like, how do I get like abs like you?" or something like that. So I don't know. I just feel like it's the best way to kind of like live your life not in your own box. People will try to put you in like one category, and for me, like, I like to do a lot of different things, and if that means poking fun at myself or other people, I'll just I'll do that. And then when it comes to like working out and fitness, I take that very seriously, and I've done pretty well over the years that I've competed. So I do a little bit of that too. So it's I mean, there's life can be whatever like you choose to make it, and so I'm trying to make the most out of mine.
Yeah. Is is that kind of how you've always been? Like always been a bodybuilder that's kind of been funny, or have you always been the funny man that just started lifting? I mean, can you kind of go into like where that started, where you have these different hats and you just wanted to display all of them?
Honestly, I have been. I'm more of a, like, even if I like go to a show or go to an event or whatever, like, I'm not gonna be the guy that's like standing out and putting on a show, and I'm very comfortable just to be observant and quiet. So I'm not necessarily like the stand-up comedian that does impressions at house parties, and I'm totally cool just to be in the background. It just kind of feels like I I wear the sort of role that sort of I feel like being in that day, I guess.
Mhm.
But I think one of the things that I was doing as I was kind of like growing into who I am is just figuring out like there's so much I feel like negativity and just bad news going around, and people just being so angry that it's really only been for the past, I don't know, couple of years that I started like saying, all right, let me do something to lighten the mood, so that when you scroll in your Instagram feed, you'll see something that's funny. And even if there's 30 seconds, it takes your mind off of all the other stuff that you're seeing that's terrible. If my reel made you laugh, then to me that's like success.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always interesting because you're kind of summarizing this thought that I have, which is we get objectified into so many different labels, and it feels like we
Mm-hmm.
always have to like, I don't want to say behave, but
Mm-hmm.
technically behave within that label. Like
Sure.
for me, I got you're Asian, you're short, you're this, you're that, and therefore those labels you can't be a bodybuilder, you can't be confident, you can't do this, and you can't be funny. But then at the end of the day, I feel like once we get objectified so much and it doesn't become congruent with who we really are, then it's like we have that choice. Do we want to stay in that objectivity, or do we just want to be our authentic selves? And it's really, I feel like that's where the challenge is, right? Where we have these labels that everybody has put upon us, but when we come and check in within ourselves, we're not those labels at all. And then society tells you, well, in order for you to be accepted by us, you have to do this. But just kind of what you're saying, like, no, that I'm not a label. I'm just John, or I'm just Alan. That's just who we are.
Right.
And the fact that you can identify that, and I feel, I mean, what's been your experience with that? Has that been kind of a challenge sometimes? Did it come with some kind of animosity at times? Like, what's that been like for you?
I think I've had like I'd say it's pretty easy. I've always had support from my family, and I think my parents especially. They were very not strict on us. They had certain rules, and as long as we, you know, behaved, then we were like good to go. But I think there were also follow through consequences. So there was accountability. So if they told us, hey, like don't do something, and then we did it, okay, there's a consequence to that. So then we learned very quickly, like, all right, they kind of mean what they're saying. And then with that, they also would present, like my parents from a young age said, you can be anything you want to be. So like hearing that constantly growing up, and then them actually supporting to say, hey, yeah, you can be anything you kind of want to be. And so I'm like, all right, so even if I want to be like 10 different things, I can sort of do that. And so yeah, so I went to school and became an engineer, and got my master's and everything, and working 20 years almost in the oil and gas industry, which is on top of the whole fitness thing. So it's kind of funny because at work, kind of people know me for the bodybuilding thing, because I bring my Tupperware, and I got my
Yeah.
lunch, and I'm eating
Yeah.
chicken and
Yeah.
broccoli, and of course they're not eating that, and I'll bring my breakfast, and they're like, man, like I want to be kind of fit like you, as they're eating a Snickers and a Coke for breakfast. I'm like, you might want to just dial back on that. Like, you don't have to just dial back on that, and you're gonna be good to go. Like, so, but I feel like, yeah, like the whole support that I've gotten over my life is just helps me, I guess, become, kind of where I'm at now and sort of who I am. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. So you're an engineer of 20 years and you got a master's degree, and that's yeah, see, look at adding another hat to everything, right? It's funny because I did a couple of research to figure out where you are, and I literally have on here that you're a Swiss Army knife, and that just adds to this. Like, I already have a bunch of things. Like, I have the creativeness, the good looking, the charm, the funny, the bodybuilding. Now I got to add engineer, and that just adds to it, man. Just the I'm an engineer too, and it's interesting on the culture of engineers, and just like what you said, like 95% of the people I work with are just that Snickers, Dr. Pepper drinking, like, well, actually Mountain Dew. Sorry, Mountain Dew is like the popular. I don't know why,
Right.
right? But then they're like, wait, how do I get in shape like you? And I get the same question all the time. It's funny because I was just in New York for training, and those guys, I love them to death, but they always like, what do you do? What do you do? And I always tell them, like, here's certain things. And they're just like, next time I see them, they don't do anything but the same question. What do you do?
Right.
What do you do? And at some point or another, you just got to realize people are on their own path. You can lead a horse to
Yeah.
water, but you can't make them drink. I mean, you
Right.
could drown them in it, but I mean, what good is that going to do? you know?
Right.
So, yeah, that's cool. So what got you into engineering? What made you want to pursue that? And let's go from there.
I was I was always really strong in math and science, and I actually enjoyed math. And when I was actually in college, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So my first semester, I was just kind of taking the general courses of everything pretty much. So I didn't have to declare what my major was. And I was in a math class, and the teacher got frustrated with the class because everyone was talking and not paying attention, and he just walked out. And it was right before the final, and everybody was like, oh man, like, what are we gonna do? Like, we got this final coming up next week. And so I was talking to the girl next to me, and she's like, do you understand how to do this stuff? And I was like, yeah. And so I was like, I can show you. And so I was talking to her just one on one. And so then there's a guy behind me that was like, hey, man, like, what are you doing? I'm like showing her how to do this. And he's like, hey, can you just go to the board and just tell us? I was like, oh, yeah. So I went to the board. So I was just telling them. And then another guy was like, oh, hey, what are y'all doing? I'm like, no, I'm just teaching them kind of, how to do the stuff that's going to be on the final. They're like, oh, can you tell the whole class? I was like, I mean, do y'all want to? And they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm like up there teaching, and then the teacher comes back, and he's like standing in the back of the room. And I saw him, but I just kind of kept going. And so he stood there for like 5 minutes, and so and they're asking me questions, and I'm explaining it. And then he was like, all right, wait a minute, wait. And she's like, he came up to me, and he's like, no, sir. I don't want you to do that unless you're getting paid. And then they're like, we'll pay him. He's like, no, sit down, sit down. So then after the after the class, he's like, can I talk to you after the class? And I'm like, oh crap. I was like, now I'm gonna get in trouble. Like, and I was like, I was just trying to help. And so then after the class, he came up to me. He said, listen, you're really strong in math. I don't know what your major is, but I think you could either be a chemist, a mathematician, or an engineer. And I want you to go talk to the counselor. I was like, okay. So I went and talked to one of the guidance counselors, and we agreed on like, hey, engineering, like that's a an interesting and challenging major. And so once I got in it and did the first semester straight A's, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. So the interesting part, like, so putting on the other hat, I should actually brought like extra hats. The
But
funny part
multiple
is,
hats.
the funny part is, I have my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, but I
Mhm.
have my master's degree in petroleum engineering, and I work as a petroleum engineer. So it may sound like, oh, well, big deal. But for people who are not engineers, they're completely different. It's like a pitcher being like a point guard. I mean, they have no correlation to each other. So, but
Mm.
I picked it up because when I started working, they put me in a role that petroleum engineers do, and I'm like, well, I feel like I need the academic like background to be able to do this properly. So I decided to get my master's, and then so I worked and went to school at the same time for 3.5 years, and I finally got it. But I mean, I got it.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm a nuclear engineer by trade. That's where I learned my nuclear background from, or my engineering background from. And right now I work on systems, a bunch of like microscope systems and things like that.
Hmm.
What does a petroleum engineer do exactly? I mean, look at my mind. I'm telling you, my monkey mind is going to petroleum jelly and is going to a lot of variable thoughts beyond just that. And ironically, John, I feel like this is, of course, you'd be a petroleum engineer. Like, but can you go into what that is?
Yeah, no, that's it's a good question. When I tell people I'm a petroleum engineer, that's the first thing. Like, what is that? I work for a major oil and gas company. So you work at the gas station? No, no, I don't work at the gas station. So, but a petroleum engineer, basically, they can do a lot of different things. And over my career, I've done a lot of different things. But the main thing is really to work with drilling engineers, with geologists, work in a team environment, basically to identify where oil and gas deposits are, and then to be
Oh.
able to actually safely produce them, and then to basically pull all the information together to present to management to say, hey, this is how much oil that I believe is down here. This is how much I believe we can produce. This is how much it's going to cost to drill the well. This is the risk of actually us, finding oil, or it's just, water. And then this is the risk of us, being able to produce at this rate for this amount of years. So this is how much profit I believe we'll make over the long term. This is our break even time. Do you want to pursue this project? So that's my job, is to present all that. I don't have the authority, I guess, to say we're going to do it or not. That's management. My just is to present it, and then they make the decision to say yes, based on our total budget, we'll go after it, or no, we'll put our money into something else. And so then after they said yes, like thumbs up, we then would say, okay, I projected, like, for instance, this well would make 300 barrels a day. We do a look back to say, but now you said it was going to make 300. How much is it making? Oh, it's doing 600. Oh, okay. Well, that's even better. So now our break even time is faster. Our profit is going to be greater. And now it's like, okay, now I have this other project. Now, last time I said I was going to do 300, it doubled. So you going to do this one? Like, so kind of things like that. So yeah, no, it's really interesting. It's a lot of math. I work in an office. I rarely go to the field. I should probably go more. But I work, in an office with a computer, Excel, like all day, every day. I know a lot of other fun, interesting software programs.
Yeah, what I heard is you're pretty much like the Pablo Escobar of oil and gas right now. It's just kind of what I heard.
I'm not- it's
Yeah,
I don't want to
but
say you have to be a good car salesman, but you just need to be able to understand the data and you need to present it in a way that gives decision makers the best ability to make the right decision.
yeah. Sorry, all I can think about is calling you Petroleum Escobar. Is that's all I can think about?
That's awesome. That's a new one for sure.
No man, it just came to mind. It's just great. This is so God that's really unique. I mean, and you're right. That is definitely not mechanical engineering at all. Like,
Right? Right? Yeah. That's why I was
but
like, oh, okay.
I would say though that the process that you would have to learn in mechanical engineering kind of translates over to what you kind of do now, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like the foundation of engineering is the processes. The process, you have an input, you have a desired output, and you got to figure out what the middle is in between that's going to get you to your results.
Right.
Oh, this is a good segue. And I feel like this plays out very well into bodybuilding, right? And
It
how we
does.
get to our result. It's like the element of what we do. Um,
100%.
for you, you said I mean, do you feel like that has translated over into how you train, how you get ready for shows? Has that engineering mindset kind of always been prevalent with like how you get ready for these events?
I think it does. It also helps me not to get overwhelmed with the day to day because at least many engineers and good engineers I work with are very organized and take things in a step by step approach. Even if sometimes you have to change, step six because you see on step two that things are not going to work. So you're able to adjust. So I feel like that is a direct correlation to what happens in prep because you're going to have to call some audibles. I mean, if you're kind of prepping yourself, which I am currently. But
Mhm.
yeah, I find that I use a lot of the same skill sets to with bodybuilding. I do like I'm doing my own prep, and so I have all these like fancy engineering charts that's tracking all this stuff. So, but to me, I like that. I enjoy it. It makes it fun. So yeah,
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah, yeah. I remember I made a podcast a while ago and it was called like how to reverse engineer to your goals. And it's
Mm,
exactly what we're talking about right here. It's like, you look at this outcome, you look at what you're doing now, and and then you backtrace on what are the things that you got to do to eventually develop who you are into that goal.
yep.
And here's the thing that I really love about results is your results aren't a matter of just your objective results. Your results are a matter of the habits, behaviors, and actions that you have taken and that you take on a regular basis. Like
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite quotes is by Naval Ravikant, and he says the goal isn't to run a marathon, the goal is to become a runner, right? And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's like the goal isn't to have abs, the goal is to become a bodybuilder. The goal isn't to
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of money, the goal is to become wealthy. And it's when you
Mm-hmm.
start realizing that the results that you want are a matter of the actions and the habits, and all you got to do is take your ideal goal, and in this case, it's bodybuilding, see what that person's results are, see what they're doing to get those results, then you backtrack it until now. What are you doing now? And then how do you now adjust your behaviors and your habits to eventually get to where that end goal is? And
Mm-hmm.
so it seems like that you're on the same mind. And then you've also created programs. You've also like created different, I guess, like maybe Excel spreadsheets to kind of
Yeah.
track your progress. Wow. So you
Yeah.
have so what's that been like? Your progress, like check it. I see you nerding out right now, man. I love this. Like, so how's that process been like to effectively nerd your way out into your results and tracking and progress? How's that been like?
It's fun, and I feel like it keeps me accountable for doing my own preps. And so I can kind of get away from hiring a coach because I don't look at, I'm prepping myself. I look at the data and I'm able to separate my feelings from what the data shows. So data driven decisions is what I do day to day. So doing that in bodybuilding it's an easy transition. So yeah, it's fun. I have targets that I need to hit each week, and then tracking the daily progress and then the averages to see how I'm doing against those targets, and then I'm able to say, all right, a little ahead. So I had planned to do cardio 6 days a week, but I'm ahead, so actually I can cut back on cardio the last 2 days. It's like because I'm already at that target. So I'm like, all right, that's to me. I like doing those things and kind of having that sort of reward, and then like resetting new week and be like, all right, back on it.
Nice. So did that, where did that start? Like, did you start with the coach and it eventually evolved into what it is now? Like, can you kind of go into that?
Yeah, I started. So my first year competing was in 2016, and I started with the coach, and that's where I learned a lot from that coach. And I'd say like I've been working out for like years, but then that was the first year where I actually started like bodybuilding, I feel like. And so I learned a lot from that coach, but then that was only, I'd say, 3 to 4 months of working with them. And so after then, I kind of took from what I learned from that section, and I figured, like, for me, like, I want to be, I'm an optimizer, so I want to be like the best in everything. And so then, grabbing my another hat here. So I went and got certified as a NASM personal trainer.
Oh,
So I studied all the material, and I took the exam. That's funny. I walked in to take the exam, and then the lady's like, "First time?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, well, just know that you can take the test up to 3 times. Like, it's okay if you fail." And I'm like, "Okay, like, thanks." But I
thanks.
mean, yeah, jeez.
Yeah.
But so
A lot of faith right there.
right. I was like, dang. So I mean, I passed the test. It wasn't. I mean, I don't know. Not to say it was like super difficult or it wasn't like super easy either. But I passed the test on the first time. But I felt like that again was just giving me a little bit more knowledge of kind of how the body works, and what I'm supposed to do to optimize my physique. So I took from what I learned from the coach and then the NASM stuff, and then applied that to future preps. And so that's been a joy to me. And I think that's been helping me as in my, short, semi short bodybuilding career.
hmm hmm Do you feel it's beneficial to have that NASM certification?
I don't think, I mean, if you want to train other people, I
Right.
think it's helpful for sure. Like, I don't think you just go to the biggest guy in the gym and be like, hey, like, can you train people? Like some of those guys look like that just genetically they're gifted, right? So
Mhm.
but so I did train people, some in person, some online, and I did not want to do that without having some kind of official certification, because I felt like it is a disservice to people who actually go to college, or who whether take NASM or like ACE or other certifications and do that. So like,
Mhm.
well, to be at least on a semi even playing field, I wanted to do that, and have that. But to like coach people like in for bodybuilding prep, I don't think it's necessarily necessary. But I feel like it's helped me, and it's helped me understand my body and why like my body responds to doing things. I'll give you an example. Like,
Okay.
you see a lot of people when they prep. Um, you see people on the Stairmaster, and they're doing their Instagram lives or whatever from the Stairmaster, and they're burning a ton of calories. My body doesn't like the Stairmaster. Like, I don't do the Stairmaster when I do prep, because I think it has more to do because when I work, I'm sitting down in the office, I don't move. So when I'm on the Stairmaster to do it for a longer period of time, you're not going to be going super fast. So you're not getting that many steps in. So for me to be on the Stairmaster, even though I'm sweating and burning a lot of calories, my weight doesn't respond the same to just being on the treadmill or the elliptical or going outside for a long walk, because my body wants to move because I've been sitting for so long. So it responds better to moving as opposed to the stairmaster. So like people, you don't necessarily have to do what your favorite Instagrammer is doing. Get on the stairmaster. It's like figure out what works best for your body.
Mm, That's interesting. Yeah, because you're right. I see a lot of people on the Stairmaster, Instagram Live,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that is like the most preferred thing that I see. I don't know that I'm saying that. I wonder whether, I love the fact that you keep on presenting the idea that just be present with your body, with yourself, because
Mm-hmm.
you're right. There's so many plans out there. There's so many don't do this, do that, be like this, be like that. But it's at the end of the day, you're ultimately responsible for figuring out what your body responds to and what you emotionally respond to as well. Because I feel like that is honestly the biggest thing. Like if there's one thing that's like a recipe for success in getting your results, regardless of if it's getting to a bodybuilding goal or if it's to anything, like the number one entity that is prevalent towards every single significant goal is consistency. And that consistency, especially for the human element, can be challenging if you're not making yourself aware of what's being told to you, if you're not making yourself aware of what you're responding to or what you're resisting to. And if you don't check in with yourself, you might find yourself in a monotonous loop of
Yeah.
losing motivation, of not being present. And then it's like, well, I tried, I didn't do that. But like, did you try, or did you just go
Mm-hmm.
through the motions of what everybody's told you to do?
Right.
Now, here's another thing that's also sometimes part of the process, right? That I feel like that's what gets our foot into the door of, we kind of follow our favorite influencer. We follow someone that sounds like they have clout. We do what they do, and then
Mm-hmm.
we tailor that to ourselves if we want to succeed, or if we don't, then we just kind of wither away with it. And that's an interesting, way to do it. Now, so where in this, and this is I know we've been looking forward to this conversation. So where in your training, where in being told what's right, what's not, this is good for you, that's bad for you, where did you learn that you can incorporate Crumbl cookies with your training?
All right. So I have to 100% blame Alana Coleman for the whole Crumbl's beginnings, because I had no knowledge of Crumbl until she brought it up, and
Okay.
she was hyping it up so much. And I'm a picky eater. I'm very picky, and especially on sweets. And she was hyping it up so much, I was just like, I'm gonna try it, but I know it's not gonna live up to all this hypeness. And I tried it, and it exceeded my expectations. I said, "Oh, Houston, we have a problem.
Oh, wait,
We
was
have
there a
got a."
specific cookie? Was there a specific cookie that this changed everything? Or what cookie was it?
Honestly, it was just the chocolate chip. That was the first one that I tried, and
Just
I'm
the
like,
basic ass chocolate chip.
"That was
I'm
the that.
surprised.
That's what I said." And I
I'm
was like, "The
surprised.
so," and that's what I told her, because I was like, "This is probably the best chocolate chip that I've had." And she said, "That's one of their worst cookies. Like, they just get better from there." And so then they're changing them every week. And so then I found that I tend to gravitate towards the sweetest of the sweet cookies, which are the ones with the icing, the sweet
Oh,
buttercream, cream
so
cheese icing on
good.
top. And I was like, all right, I got to start like making a list to figure out like what ones that I prefer. So when they come back, I need to like load up, because they change the menu every week. And I hate
Yeah.
when people are on prep and they're like, food doesn't matter. It's going to be there next week. No, it's not.
No,
With
it's
Crumbl,
not.
it's not. You can always just get it when you get off of prep. No, you can't. That cookie
Oh
may
my
not come
god.
back for a year if you're lucky. So I got to stock up. When they come, I got to stock up. So the funny thing is, in the off season, I was eating probably, now that, all right, I'll be real, all right? I was eating 3 Crumbls a day, easily,
Damn.
easily,
Damn.
easily. So one after, but this is good though. One after breakfast, one after lunch, and one after dinner. I thought that was pretty good moderation. I was like, all right, I'm doing pretty good.
It was meal prep. I prepped these in their own individual packages.
But to counteract that, like I wasn't eating like 3 plates of rice with the Crumbl. It's like, all right, let me cut back a little bit on the rice. Let me cut back a little bit on the fat to make room for the Crumbl. And so the interesting thing about that was, I mean, of course, 3 Crumbls a day for a while. Um, when I started to get into prep, all I did, like my first 2 weeks, I cut back to 1 Crumbl a day, and I was still dropping weight, like a ton of weight. And so I was like, man, I kind of like this now. Now, okay, I'm deep in prep. I can't do that anymore. But that was a good, first step. Was like not eliminate everything. I don't have crazy Crumbl cravings right now because I was able to kind of like taper off. Also, I feel like just kind of making it a part of your life kind of keeps me like in check. So in my freezer right now is like 35 Crumbl, right?
Yo,
So
I was just gonna ask you, like, if you have any cookies saved up. That was literally my next question. 35 of them in your freezer right now, bro?
I counted them all out. I put little notes because some of them are ones I was curious to try, but I won't remember what the flavor is. So I write it down, like which one this is, and I just stick it in the freezer. And then some of them are that that top five that I'm like, oh no, they brought it back. Like the chocolate Oreo, I got 8 of those just waiting, just waiting.
Chocolate. Wow. Is that your number
Yeah,
one? I know you have a top 5 list. Is that your number one on the list?
that is number one. And I'm telling y'all, if you get the Oreo, it doesn't get better than that one. Like it is at A plus. Like it just doesn't get any better. So yeah,
Wow.
I got a box of 12 of that. I only have 8 of them, so I did eat some of them. But that was earlier on prep, that was back then. So I'm good now. I'm not cheating, so to speak. But even when I had, these were like months ago. But even when I had like one, I was like kind of nervous, like, oh, like how's my weight gonna respond? And the next day, it's like nothing, still like dropped. I'm like, oh, sweet. Now does that mean I can? I was like, no, don't push it, don't push it. I'm like, all right, okay, just
Damn.
keep it cool.
Wait, so let's round out the rest of the top 5. So number one is chocolate Oreo, right?
Yes.
I'm curious about the other because I believe your number 2 was like the caramel churro one or something like that, right?
Yeah, so I believe yeah, Oreo one, churro is two, and it's got a lot of like cinnamon to it. So if you like cinnamon, then yeah, for sure, like
Oh
churro is going to
yeah,
be up
that
there
shit's
because it's
delicious.
got all the icing. Three. Now this is maybe a little controversial. It's called a caramel apple, and it sounds a little kind of like ugh. Or caramel apple or caramel popcorn because what they do is they put like the little corn or the apple pieces on top. To me, like I take that stuff off. Like I don't want that. But the like the apple, I don't want that. But like the good part is they got the cream cheese frosting, but then they drizzle the caramel on there too. So just the combination of it, it's like amazing.
Okay.
So that's top three. So then they just had last week. They had a snickerdoodle, and everybody was going crazy over the snickerdoodle. I'm like telling you, I'm like no, the snickerdoodle cupcake. That's the next one. That's on fire because it's basically that snickerdoodle cookie, but then it's got the cream cheese frosting on top. So I'm
Oh.
like, that's what sets it over the top.
Okay. So that'd
Um,
be number 4.
and then the next is red velvet.
Red velvet. Oh
Red.
man. It sounds like we have a lot of a similar flavor profiles when it comes to desserts.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like it. Like
Super
no.
sweet.
Right. Well, that's funny because it's like I'm a huge Snickerdoodle fan, but Snickerdoodle with cream cheese frosting, so much more different, right, bro? You know,
Right.
it's funny. So I remember I was on deployment, and one of our port calls for that deployment, our first ones was Dubai, and the very first place that we went to, after eating months of crappy food on the ship, as you can imagine. Like literally, so it was funny. I was just describing this to other people. We have crates of food on deployment, and on the sides of these giant crates would be say not made for human consumption, like the quality of food what we're eating. So imagine where the first place we land or first place we go to when we land in Dubai is a Cinnabon, right? And
Ooh.
I still remember, and it's funny because I remember this to this day. It's just funny what we're talking about where, or you can have a snickerdoodle, but you can have cream cheese frosting, so it's even better. So this lady, as we're checking, I'm getting so excited. Right? I'm just like, oh, this is about to get it, right? About to like do a little dance. And right as we're checking out, she's like, well, would you like a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top of this? And I just remember looking at my buddy like, do I want a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top of this? What? Like, of course I do. Like, does a bear shit in the woods? Duh, I do, you know? And it's interesting. Oh, that's what just reminded me of like, no. Don't have snickerdoodle. Wait till you have the frosting on top of the snickerdoodle. Like, that's the next one. So it's funny
Oh,
that we're like that. So is that like when, so you have a competition you have here coming up in 3 weeks, right? You said the PMBA is,
yes.
before we get into kind of talk about that training, do you have like your Crumbl cookie lineup set up for post show?
So this is it's not local. It's like a couple of hours away. So I'm either gonna drive or take the train or whatever. So I'm debating just taking some of the crumbles with me post show and just going to town. I haven't decided. I haven't decided because like I could just wait till I get back home or something. But I haven't. Yeah, I haven't decided yet on what I'm gonna do with that. I did that last year, and I brought like four, and I was like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna eat them all, but I'll just bring some just in case. No, I ate them all. So I'm learning. I'm like, okay, that was a learning experience. Don't do that. So if I do, I may only just bring one, maybe two, because I do have some other shows after this next one, and I don't want to. I don't want to like scramble to try to get ready just because you had one glorious afternoon of Crumbl. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always, I find it the most challenging right after a show to not overindulge and not, go ham with it.
yeah,
Mind you, I'm still not the best with that, or I am the best with that, however you want to look at it. Like I definitely splurge. And it's for sure I gain about a good 5 to 10 pounds that first week after my comp. I mean, I, I have I have no desire in trying to like maintain this leanness. Like I mean, I do to an extent, right? But
yeah,
for me, all of the work is got to that point, and for me, that's kind of like what bodybuilding is for me. It seems like you kind of do bodybuilding more as like a hobby and more as a like still just trying to like I guess you just keep gravitating back towards that. Like, what's your approach to bodybuilding and still competing? Like, what is that for you?
So I recognize where I am in the sport. Like I earned my pro card on the second show that I did. So, I know that okay, it's like all right, I was, pretty good as an amateur and then got the pro card and I've done pretty well. I've won an open pro show. I've won three masters titles. So it's like I've done well and I've, placed in some pretty high level shows. However, I know where I fit in. Like I know I am not like Showtime, Arius, Murph, Dex, like and all these other guys that are at that markets. Like all these guys are at that top level. Like Isha, like I know I'm not at that level. However, I do feel like I'm still pretty competitive. And so I go into it with the expectation that, hey, if somebody's going to beat me, they're going to have to work for it. And on the right
Mm.
day, you know, I can pop up and then make people say, oh, Jonathan's looking pretty good this time. And this year, I feel like I'm bringing a different package than what I've brought in previous years, in previous shows, because like last year, I did 10 shows. So I was in
Oof.
prep. I was in prep from January to November because my show started May to
What?
November,
Yeah.
and this is when I was moving. So I just got to California last January, and so I started prep like as I was unloading boxes in my house. Like so, all the stress of like finding a new gym and trying to figure out the angles of the equipment in that new gym, and all that I did all that in a time where I was doing 10 shows and figured out that, hey, my body doesn't really hold up well doing 10 shows. So I'm like, all right, so I'm going to dial that back and maybe do three, four, five at the most this year over a probably 6 week to 8 week period as opposed to 6 months. So I feel like my physique is gonna shine a little bit better this year, and so maybe
Mhm.
I can kind of like see where I stack up again. So, but yeah, I'm excited for the challenge to stay on stage and kind of see where I'm at. But I try to not get too high or too low off of the outcomes of these shows because on any given day, some of those placements can kind of flip a little bit. So I just want to showcase the best physique that I have on that day, and then see how it goes again. The next time I do a show.
Mm. Mm. I feel like that's something that's kind of learned where you gotta get yourself out of the objective result that you get into that
Yeah.
show. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where did you? Is there an instance where you had to learn that? Is there a moment for you in your training where in your? I mean, since you've been competing since 2016, I feel like it's been an entire journey for you, and it hasn't always. I mean, has it always been like that in the beginning? Like, can you talk about where you kind of accepted that mindset of a result?
Honestly, it came last year. So after all those years of competing, I think last year is where it finally kind of sunk in, because I was doing so many shows, and some of those shows were almost like back to back. Like I would have a show one weekend, then a break, and then another show, and it was literally the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. So I would go from winning a show and then 2 weeks later placing like fourth or fifth. And then the next 2 weeks I got second. So I'm like, listen, I'm not going to make it if I'm going to be roller coastering with these placements.
Yeah.
So, because I was like, that's too much. I just want to, get on stage. I want to display that I'm having a good time. I want for people to remember me, and so my routine for the federations that I did that allowed men's physique to actually do like their own kind of posing routine, I am, and I'll kind of like wear this, and if somebody kind of has an example, I would love to see it. But I believe that I am the first person to ever do a posing routine to bachata music.
The
So,
bachata music.
I, bachata music, Romeo Santos, yes.
Woo!
So I wanted that to
You got the
be.
hips going, right? All right. Let go. Wow. All right. I
I wanted to be memorable. So I was like, whether win or lose, first or last, I didn't get last, so I placed well in those events that I did the routine. But the funny part is, in some of the like one of the shows I did, I flew to, so people didn't really know me. So when they announced my name, they're like, "Yeah, Johnathan Goins," and so you heard like two people clap, at the beginning of the routine. And I'm like, I didn't know anybody. But by the end of the routine, it was almost like a standing ovation. They were like, "Whoa!" Like it was so loud. The head judge was like, "All right, okay, okay," because they had to move on to get the next person. So I was like, that's the type of feedback that I wanted to get. So I, people are going to remember that one. So that was fun. I enjoyed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's good though. I feel like that's what bodybuilding needs a little bit more to raise its popularity. Look, I'm not opposed to the classic, slow movement, flexing or whatever. But you mean if it's not going to be judged, with theoretically it's not supposed to be, like,
Mm-hmm.
why not do something that'll get the crowd into it, that'll get them, all into your performance? And yeah, if you're
Mm-hmm.
at a bodybuilding show, and again, kind of going back to stereotypically objectifying ourselves in the labels, like why not be the bodybuilder that does a little bachata, that has a little, pep in their step, a little, everything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God. It's funny. So my very first bodybuilding show, I noticed that like a lot of people were, doing the classic poses or doing their little back things. And you see the crowd like kind of like golf clapping. Oh, okay, cool. So when I did my
Mm-hmm.
individual routine, I was like, you know what? I'm going to fucking do my own goddamn thing. And I felt so good up on stage that I just started moonwalking as soon as my,
Nice.
see what I mean? But it got the crowd going. It made people remember, like when everybody's up flexing, doing Arnold, doing a classic, whatever. This guy moonwalked. He said, "The hell with it,"
Mm-hmm.
And it was that's and honestly, that is what I'm going to end up bringing. So, real quickly, like me and my boy Adam, we have a little challenge of a competition coming up for the next year's Florida Pro because we're both amateurs going for our pro card. And one of the ways that we set this bet up is that we're going to have our own individual routines that YouTube and Instagram will be able to vote on. But I told Adam, I'm like, bro,
Oh.
like I might come in third, I might come in fourth, I might not place, but that individual routine, my man, I am gonna take that crown, and you better be ready. Like, you better, because
Nice.
yeah, but because it's for me, I've realized it's not really anything against bodybuilding, but I think it's just my history with the military where I've been constantly told to conform to a certain standard, and you got to do this. And I think bodybuilding has its way of doing that. Like, hey, in order for you to place this, you have to have these objective features, even though you're judged subjectively on someone else's opinion about your objective features. Another topic for another day. But so it's like, well, where's the one instance that I can just be myself, not give an F, and do what I want to do? Oh, the individual routine, and
Right.
that's where I feel like we can definitely thrive and create a little bit more memories and create more excitement to the sport. Like not everything
That's
just
right.
has to be about abs posing. It could be a little bit of bachata, a little bit of everything. I
Right.
was going to ask you about that because part of the Swiss Army knife persona that I've, definitely found out about you and the research, aka Instagram creeping on people before I before I talk to them. But one of the things I saw is that you do a lot of bachata, you do a lot of dancing. I also saw you're part of like a dance crew or something like that. You had you and one of your boys or something like can you talk about that and let's find out about that?
Yeah, so I got into Latin dancing, so salsa and bachata. I took some lessons. Like I got into that. One of my friends, one of my coworkers, he was like, "Hey, let's go to a club." I'm like, "All right, cool." And then he's like, "I was like, where you want to go?" He's like, "A salsa club." And I'm like, "I don't know how to salsa." He's like, "Ah, it's fun. You just go." So we went, and I didn't know how to dance, but I could pick up on people, and I'm like, it looks like he only has two moves, but all the girls were like asking him to dance. I'm like, well, dang. I mean, I can figure out the two moves, and so I just by watching him, I was like, all right, let me. I picked up one of them, but then I could only do that one. So I was dancing with girls, and I was messing up a whole lot. They were. It was funny because they were excited to dance with me, but then once I was like messing up, they're like, oh. So I'm like,
Oh.
okay. I was like, all right, I got. I'm not going out like that. Like, all right. So I started going to class, like salsa class, and was terrible. And I'm like, now this just can't be. Like, I'm a black man. I got rhythm. Like, what's going on? Like, so I just couldn't accept that I was bad at dancing. And so I kept going to class, and then I got better. And then I really started to enjoy it. And one of my friends was like, "Hey, when they have these big salsa and bachata festivals where it's like an entire weekend event to where they have like performances and then you dance like just social dance with everybody from like 11 p.m. to like 6 a.m. And these things are like
Jeez.
all over the place. Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And so, and if you get like a semi-headline performer, then they will actually pay you to go to some of these things. And so that's where we got to. So it started off with a group of six of us, so three guys, three girls. But then one of the girls, she was like, "Oh, I'm about to get married and have a baby." And then one of the other girls was like, "Oh, I'm going to go back to school." And so we started from six, and then we just came down to just two. So it was just me and him. Like we were trying to be like, okay, so what are we gonna do? So we figured out, okay, some performances we would have, a girl that we would train for a couple of months and bring her in to do kind of a solo. But so we kind of like made it work. But it was a lot of fun because we were a very different team because we didn't do again like the traditional salsa with the crazy like outfits and all that stuff. Our performances were like salsa, hip hop, bachata. It had like a good mix of everything. And so it made people remember because if you're watching 30 shows one night, you're just like sitting there golf clapping. But then when you see like, this crazy high energy 2.5 minute performance, you're like, oh man, that was good. So we kind of started getting recognized and they were flying us out to like New York to perform and stuff. So we did that for a couple of years. Once I kind of moved here, we haven't done that as much. We've been flirting with the idea to kind of start it back up, but nothing yet so far. But I mean, I'll still like just go to dancing events just to have good time and dance on that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can imagine too when because a lot of those events are very traditional in the sense that you have a lot of more like Hispanic, Mexican people, cultured people there. So I can imagine when you got a black guy
Mm-hmm.
there that all of a sudden could bachata like, oh, you put us a bachata, see, oh, and
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
imagine that just opens up everything. Like, all right, so this reminds me of something. I'm kind of embarrassed to tell this, but I mean, it is what it is. The only reason why I have a hinkling of bachata because I know a little bit about it, right? And I think a lot of what your experience is, where you're talking about, you took like girls kind of, oh, you don't know everything, so just kind of walk away. I had this
Mm-hmm.
beautiful girl. We went on this date. Her name's Abigail, and I don't know if she'll listen to this way. Whatever. I'm still really close with her family, but I had a crush on this girl for years, and we went on a date and it was like she was like let's go to bachata. I'm like I don't but to what? She's like bachata, like we dance blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, I could dance, I could like do a little two step, do a little whatever, right? But we get there and I realized very quickly I don't know what's going on at all. And mind you, I mean, it is a very simple couple of steps, but when you're just looking at it the whole time and, when you just are resistant towards learning new things, it looks
Mm-hmm.
like it's very cumbersome and it looks like a mountain to climb. And so she was trying to teach me, I wasn't getting it. And I shit you not, this other Asian guy, very good looking guy, handsome ass dude, comes in. Do you mind if I dance with him? I'm like, oh, fuck. I can't say no. And he killed it. And he killed it with my girl. And she's just like, you know what I mean? And after,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as she got done, she's like, want me to teach you? I'm like, I got to teach myself before we do this again. I mean, mind you, we didn't go on another day for a couple of years later. I think my ego and my pride got hurt, but I definitely had
Yeah.
to learn that damn thing in between because,
Right.
man, I remember feeling like, oh, that just happened to me. That happened.
Right.
That
Right.
happened. But now when I go to these things, it's like, oh, like a Coreano that knows bachata. See, like
Mm-hmm.
see, you know what I mean? The little bag of skills that you gotta learn them once. And mind you, it takes a little bit, and it takes a couple of drinks sometimes too to get myself ready for that. And it is what it is. Do you man? Now I'm curious as to how you incorporate bachata with your individual routine. Like, how do you put that together? How do you ensemble that?
So the posing routine that I did, I mean, it was just the music, and so I was doing the conventional because the song that I chose starts off slow and then it gets fast. So I was doing the conventional bodybuilding poses to the music in the beginning, and then it builds, and then once it gets fast, it's just full on bachata. But it's only like so it's like posing routine is 60 seconds, so it's like 52 seconds of conventional poses and everything, and then the last 8 seconds is just pure dancing. There's like zero bodybuilding, but that's the part that got everybody like excited, right? So
Oh
that's, I
yeah.
mean, that's what I did before. I'm not, I'm still debating on how I'm going to, like, what I'm going to do with the posing routine this year. I've just been practicing on like different transitions and different poses. I haven't put it together, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna do like a salsa song or another bachata song or just like a regular song. I haven't figured that part out yet. I'm kind of a last minute guy to put that all together because I want to make sure I make the right, I guess, decision because but it's something you got to feel. So for that song that I felt it and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So this one I haven't figured that part out yet, but it's coming. I don't have to figure that out probably until the October shows because the PNBA show, it's just a T walk, so you don't have a routine for that.
Oh, I got you. I got you. So what's your I guess what's your outlook and like what's your goals with professional bodybuilding from like here on out? Is there something you want to accomplish by the time you're done? Do you want to just continue doing this until the wheels fall off? Like what are I guess what are your big goals for yourself like looking onward?
So I do want to continue to, because I'm a masters competitor, so I want to focus a lot more of my attention on masters and capture some more masters titles. So last year I was able to capture 3 masters titles in 3 different federations. So I feel like that's pretty solid. So when you think like top level men's physique masters guys, like I want people to think, okay, Jay Goins, like he's at one of the ones. So I want to build on that and try to see if I can be competitive and get some of those titles this year. I'll probably do a couple of open shows also this year, maybe next year too, just to kind
Okay.
of see where I'm stacking up against the young guys. Like, make it hard for us. Like these grades, I gotta start dying them or something. Maybe that'll get me a placement up there or something. But
What, bro? I didn't even, bro. When you said you're doing masters, I really couldn't even imagine it. Like I thought you were my age, which is not master's age, but I'm the fact that you even said your master was like, great. What are you talking about, great? What are you talking about, bro? Like, what are you even talking about? But yeah, keep going. Sorry, I just had to.
I So I mean, yeah, but that's really mostly about it. I'm only doing maybe 3 to 5 shows this year, so I'll kind of see how those stack out, and then make a game plan for next year. I tend to try to assess the year at the end of the year from a state where I'm not hungry, because if you try to make decisions when you're hungry and in the middle of prep, you'll be like, you know what, I'm good with all this. Like I'm out. But like once you get away from that and then you've got some food and you've got some of those things that you couldn't eat for a couple of months, it's like, all right, now that you've got that, do you want to continue? And it's like, I did enjoy doing that. I want to see if I can push myself to some new challenges or, kind of go about it like that. So yeah, I'll figure out like the game plan after my last show. But this year, yeah, got my nose to the wall and trying to see if I can grab me some more of those titles.
All right, and more of those crumble cookies too as we're going. And then
Mm-hmm.
I guess sorry, that goes without saying, bro. You know what I love? Your reaction is exactly like how people like bring up a good like girlfriend or something like, yo, you remember Sandra? Oh, do I remember Sandra, bro? That's exactly how you just look like with the crumble cookies. Like,
Right.
bro, I forgot it. That's Bay right there, right? That's just Bay. That's Boo.
Yes.
that's why.
That's right.
All right, so and then because of the multiple hats, I got to ask you with like the content, with the funny TikToks, the funny Florida person, California persons, be like, what's your big view with that? What's your direction with that? Is there anything that I don't know you have a big goal on per se or anything?
The funny thing is, so I've had a couple of videos on Instagram go viral. The latest one it's up to like 8.2 million now, And everybody, I don't know how many messages I've gotten. They're like, "How much money did you get for that? Like, you must be like swimming in dough." And I'm like, "Listen, you know how much money I made? $3.10.
Off of
That's
8.2 million views?
yes, because they changed how they're I don't know, doing the payout based on the like the little program or whatever, and so their stoppage or whatever of the program happened right when my thing kicked off. So maybe it could have been, I don't know, a lot more had this happened, I don't know, like 6 months ago or a year ago or something. But so for me, I'm just having fun with it. I've got at the time I only had like, I don't know, 3 or 4 thousand followers. Now I'm up to almost 9,100. So I was like, hey, that's pretty cool.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna keep putting out content, see if I can get the follower count to grow, or subscriber count or whatever to grow a little bit more. And it's not really like a huge goal with that. It's more just I want people to kind of see some of this stuff and then kind of laugh about it. So
Yeah.
I get messages and people are like, yeah, thanks. I needed to see that. Like I'm having a bad day, and so that's the kind of things that I like. I just want to give people like a little chuckle to break up the some of the negative news that's on like all day, every day. Like, I mean, there was literally a death counter on TV. I'm like, we're seriously watching a death counter on TV, and you don't know what kind of long term effects that has on people's minds and what they're going to be doing going forward. So I'm like, I can't change what people do at that level or anything. All I can do is change or control my behavior, and so my behavior is trying to help people not feel so alone and not feel so depressed, and just get out of all that for a minute and watch a funny video and laugh. And then it's funny because you can go down a bunch of different rabbit holes when you're on the computer. So
Yeah.
when people look at one of my reels, and then I get the notifications that the same person has like 20 of the reels, and I'm like, I got them.
They
Look
got
down.
it.
And then I say, oh, somebody followed you, and I'm like, got them. So I see
Yeah.
that a lot, but it's funny because I like that. People, because you're going to get sucked in. If you're going to get sucked in, you might as well get sucked into something that's kind of positive and that's uplifting your spirits. So I like that. So
Yeah.
I'll continue to do that.
Yeah. I love that, man. I love the fact that you identify that there is a movement per se of media trying to create a bunch of negative animus and a negative energy to make people feel scared or something. And you're like, hey, fuck you. I'm going to make you guys laugh instead because of this. And like, yeah, you can look at this in a very negative, death tolling kind of a depressive way, or you can look at it and make some light out of this shit, the one video that you're talking about, the one that went viral, are you talking about the rap music from today's day and age? Is that the one?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Everybody has an opinion about that one,
Yeah. Well,
good or bad. I think that's why I kept going.
yeah, it's funny because I remember like my parents and the way that they would describe my music, like all that rap crap and blah 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 blah. And we're doing the same thing with my children's
100%.
generation's music. It's like you have that rap crap, and they're like, "Well, you guys listen to the same thing." Like, but we didn't listen to the same thing. Like, but on the same
Yeah.
token, I kind of look at like, yeah, we kind of listen to the same thing, just a little different version of it. But that mumble rap is, oh, I don't,
It's something else.
it's, I, yeah, but I'm not. The issue that I have is I'm trying to not become my parents and not trying to be like, oh, this rap crap. I'm not trying to be like that, but I can't help but to relate to them when I hear this mumble rap and this like exactly what your video is, right? And then it's
Yeah.
I think because I grew up with like Nas, Talib Kweli, like people that had some real lyrics, and when they rapped about things that were really prevalent. And I'm not saying every song was like that, but there was
Right.
more than just ODing on crap and being depressed all the time and having to default to medications and meds and popping this and popping that. And it's like, but then again, I'm just like, I sound exactly like my parents. So, I mean, I don't,
It's funny.
Uh,
I mean, yeah, it's like they did tell us the same thing, and then they would play their music, and you're like, oh, this sounds so old. And so now that that's what I see. So many comments. They're like, oh yeah, why don't you go listen to some Biggie? And I'm like, gladly. I
the
mean,
yeah, you don't threaten me with a good time.
yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my god. All right, John. Well, I'm wrapping this up, man. Any last things, man? Instagram handle, YouTube channels, anything you want to add on to here, and then yeah, let's do that.
Instagram, Mr. MR period go in 365. YouTube is Mr. Go dash in. Those are the main two I think I'm most active on. So I try to do the reels basically 5 times a week. I post a bunch of stuff to my stories basically daily. So
Yeah.
it's a good time. Come follow.
Yeah. And I can personally attest to the fact, I mean, this is the reason why I reached out to John and originally, where I was like, dude, this shit's hilarious. And you're a bodybuilder? Like, oh my God, we need to talk about this. And I will personally attest that his page is very entertaining. And it's exactly what he said. If you find yourself scrolling, you find yourself in this triggering, gaslighting bullcrap like that media is all filled with, it's a very, very breath of fresh air for that scroll, man. So John, I really appreciate your time, man. I genuinely appreciate this interview. Any last things you want to add before we wrap this up?
I just want to say thank you for reaching out and giving me the opportunity. I love what you're doing. Your interviews are awesome. They're like this one has been totally different from previous ones I've done, so I've enjoyed it. Yeah, so definitely just keep doing what you're doing too, man. This is making a big hit, and the thing with you and Robin, that's awesome too. I love watching those.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, dude, Robin is so awesome. She seriously is like my sister from another mister. Like I don't know where
Yeah.
she's been my whole life. And I swear, like, and it's funny because real quick, just I'm gonna give you a big shout out, Robin. So like we literally we have calls to get ready for our next upcoming show because we have on this next Wednesday. And we just talked for an hour and a half and just being ourselves. And like we didn't even talk about anything about the show. We just talked. Like we're just, you know what I mean? And that's but that's what I love about this community, man. It's just there's so many great people. We understand the grind and the hustle that it gets to get ready for show on top of the personal transformation that you got to do to get ready or to be accustomed to the misery we put ourselves to get to these results. And that in of
Right.
itself bonds us all together because, like misery
Yep.
loves company and we're just a ginormous industry of misery loving company. Like it's exactly what it
100%.
is.
100%. And
Oh,
and keep
man.
the dad jokes. Those are awesome.
Oh, of course. Of course. Ooh, you know what? Do we have one? We do. Speaking about rappers, which rapper is Alama's favorite?
Oh, I don't know.
Kendrick Lamar. Yes.
Everybody's gonna stop in their tracks on that when they're like,
Oh my God, bro. I didn't think I was gonna end this with the dad joke, but you brought it up. How could I not?
"That was a good one. That was
Thank
good.
you.
That
Thank
was
you.
good."
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anyways. All right, you guys. Well, thank you for joining us and thank you for joining for the dad joke at the end. and until next time, thank you all very much. Deuce. Man, that was fun, man. That was a lot of
That was cool. I didn't
that was
expect that one.
no, but I mean that's the beauty of it. Like you just